Hello and welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Every single week we try to help you with retirement planning solutions, strategies, ideas, what to worry about and what not to worry about.
Right.
Tim, what's on your mind this week?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the discrepancy between, isn't that, I'm already sounding good here, right?
Yeah.
Anytime you can work discrepancy into
You're starting out with the heavy stuff. Let's call it the real dollars and cents of retirement.
There you
Look,
go,
there's
much
returns,
better.
There's portfolios, there's all kinds of numbers out there, and we have spent a lot of time over the last few weeks talking about things like estate planning and insurance and taxes. Today's program, we are going to focus more on the portfolios, the earnings, the 60-40, the kinds of expenses that we actually put into those retirement accounts and those investment accounts, and what could or could not be worthwhile for your own costs.
What you get for them.
What you get for
What
it.
you get for your money.
Value, if you
that's
will.
it.
The value of it.
Yes.
There was a Morningstar report, though. Morningstar, very, very familiar in our industry. Maybe you've read it as well. They'll do all kinds of evaluations. Now, the weird thing is, and we've read this in so many different iterations. They say that an average fund, I'm just going to use round numbers, could return, let's say, 7%. But the regular retail investor usually only makes 2 or 3% on that same fund. Why is that?
Why is that, Spike? How is it that you see the returns and you're like, well, I didn't get that? Well, it's human behavior. Those returns don't account for people making changes when things get rough. The markets go down, people get worried, they pull their money out, then they get back in. That's why there is such a gap there between what the returns we see on investment and what people actually realize in their personal
So the
portfolio.
holding period of the fund that is reported, you need to stay invested that entire time.
To have that return, yes.
And sometimes you could just miss 5, 10, 20 days of whatever that market is over that 1 year or 3 year or 5 year span.
Over a 20-year period, you could miss out on the best 20 days in half your return. It's incredible when you look at some of these studies. There was a study that was put out by Fidelity, and it was looking at literally a 20-year period of return, and the investor returns were less than half of just missing the 20 best days in a 10-year period.
And that was talking about missing days, not about necessarily the fees, because that's what I'm always curious about when I see this. When they say, oh, the investor made half, I'm like, well, maybe that's because of your fees inside that fund. Is that not what they're actually reporting on?
That's not what they're reporting on here, but fees do factor in. And when you talk about fees and value, I think a lot of times, we are programmed to get the best deal. We want to buy stuff on sale. We want to save money. But when it comes to money management, and I hear our wealth management team talk about this all the time, a lot of times when you're saving money on your retirement portfolio, what you're doing is exposing yourself to risks that you didn't even think about.
And not realizing it. We're going to do that when we come back in the next segment. We're going to talk about some of those actual costs, the things that we're accustomed to paying for as opposed to actually paying for professional financial advice. And I totally understand. Some folks, it's either one of two things. They think that speaking with a financial professional is too expensive, or there's no value. It's not worth it for them to pay somebody else.
And I think a lot of times it's the value piece. We hear in the office all the time, well, I was working with somebody and I felt like I could do better. I hear that a lot where people are, my person never calls me. They don't do a review. I own the same thing now that I owned 5 years ago. Nobody's made any changes. The market's gone down. The economy's done this. And there's no proactive conversation going on what they should do to respond to that. And I'm always blown away by that because, these are people that are being paid. Talking about advisors, these are people that are being paid to help somebody. They're receiving a fee, but yet there seems to be a lack of help.
Okay. And now, again, right now we are talking about the investments, but the retirement blueprint itself isn't just about investment strategy. Very clearly for you, tax planning, insurance planning, at least the discussions, estate planning, even the long-term care, how and when to turn on Social Security. But today we are talking about that part of the element on it because most retail investors don't actually get the average returns of what's being reported.
Right.
Let's move on to one. I think this one came from Vanguard, is maybe the 60/40 isn't working for people right now. We certainly know it wasn't last year. Why is that?
Well, when you look at the 60/40, the idea behind it, that's 60% on the equity side, so stocks, 40% on the bond side. The bond side are supposed to act as a buffer, or I like to jokingly call it an airbag. You know, if the market goes down, you've still got this thing that's protecting part of your portfolio value, unless what happens a little over 2 out of every 10 years is we see bonds and stocks go down at the same time, which is exactly what happened in 2022. The average person saw 17, 18% decline in what was supposed to be billed as a safe alternative to the normal 100% in equity type of investment.
Well, then I go back to the word of being safe. Is set it and forget it safe?
No. It's set it and forget it is never safe. And the reason is that things change. The economy changes. It's an ever-changing landscape that you have to proactively be on top of, or have a team of people that's on top of it. If you're sitting at home right now and you're like, oh my gosh, he's talking about me. I literally went through last year and my person just said, hang in there, it'll be okay. That's not necessarily the best answer. And that's where maybe a second opinion may make sense at this point, if that has been your experience.
And I ask this, do you mind doing that second opinion? Do you mind doing a second opinion of another financial advisory group? And do you mind if somebody does a second opinion on your work at somebody else's shop?
No and yes. I don't mind if somebody wants to get a second opinion on what we've done. I feel very confident because I know that that's going to basically give them an opportunity to hear that what we're doing is the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind doing a second opinion for someone that is working with another company for the simple fact that it's a fresh set of eyes. Every one of our clients that we work with typically came in for a second opinion. They were already working with someone. And what we had to offer, for whatever reason, for them, there was enough value there for them to choose to make a change.
All right, Tim, we'll be right back after this. Why don't you find out if the fees you're paying in your investments are of value to you? Are they doing what they should for you as far as performance? Well, nobody can guarantee that. But do they match your goals, your objectives, what you're trying to do in retirement, creating that income stream? Or is it time to get a second pair of eyes and possibly make a shift for your retirement? There's no cost to make a phone call. There's no cost to come in. There is no cost to get started on your own retirement blueprint. Call the phone number you see below and get started with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. We'll be back with more with Tim and myself right after this.
My most rewarding moment for helping clients is seeing the fear of the unknown disappear from their face. You know, some people are worried about a potential nursing home stay. Some, it's market volatility and losing their money in their investment. Some are just genuinely concerned about the direction of the economy. But for the most part, the whole taking away of fear and concern starts with having a plan. Not something off the shelf, but something customized to that family, where we can sit down and get to know them intimately, to understand what their hopes and dreams are. What do they want to have happen after they're gone? And make sure that those things happen. The retirement blueprint is exactly that. It's a blueprint for retirement. It's built off of the 5 cornerstones of retirement planning. It's developing an income plan, creating a tax plan, an estate plan, a long-term care and health care plan, and of course, the investment plan. And the best part is we have a team of people to come alongside to do all of those things, that have the credentials and the expertise and the years of experience to make sure that everyone is coming together to create the best plan. It takes those worries out of their head and puts solutions down on paper.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axum Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. Let's be honest. When we think about those retirement accounts, We know that there's costs in there to have somebody help you out. And we know there's costs for the investments. And then sometimes there's the cost for the management advice.
Right.
I was surprised when I put together our set list that you didn't mind me asking this question. I'd like to talk a little bit about fees. Is there value in those fees, or does it depend on what the service of the firm does?
It 100% depends on the service of the firm, and it also depends mainly on the perspective of the client. There's value there if the client says there's value. If the client says there's no value, there's no value. I learned that early on in my career, that no matter how good a job I do, or I think I did, if the client doesn't think so, then it doesn't matter. But there is absolutely value in management, because we've seen the reports, we've seen the studies on it that have shown working with a financial advisor makes an actual difference.
There was an independent study done by Vanguard, and they're essentially known for a lot of do-it-yourselfers who invest in there. So again, you are welcome to look up this information on your own. This isn't Tim and I putting together the numbers, but they said around an extra 3% in performance. Not guaranteeing it, just saying 3% performance by working with a financial advisor. Now, 3% might not sound like a lot, but when you compound that over time, the growth inside your accounts that we were talking about was very substantial. So let's talk about that number. Most people talk about a number of 1% to maybe 1.5% to help manage your accounts. And people say, well, that's a lot, or I don't know, that's cost prohibitive. I can do it myself for nothing. What are some other numbers we're used to paying that are more perhaps than 1%?
And that's my question, Spike, is, what other things can we look at that we are already paying fees for? I think about when I have good service at a restaurant, I typically tip 20%. 20% for somebody serving me a meal. And how does that align with somebody who's going to make sure that I'm able to retire and stay retired for the next 30 plus years? But look at some of these numbers. Federal income tax rate around 24%. Our Ohio state income tax averages around 4%. Property taxes, sales taxes are around 7.5% in Ohio when you factor in the county. Tax on gasoline, 5%. Airline tickets, 22%. Taxes on your wireless bill, 25%. Cable bill, 23%.
And these are all numbers we just accept.
Without question.
You don't see people going around, oh my God. I mean, yes, every now and then you'll hear about, tax, or I can't believe this cost me that much more because of the state tax or the gasoline tax. You'll hear people squibbling. But then they don't say, well, I'm not going to use gasoline because there's a 5% tax on it. People will say, well, I don't want to pay somebody 1% to manage it. I can do this on my own. And it's the value of it. And I also look at it as opportunity cost lost. Yes. You don't realize what you're missing out on. And again, it's not just the holding on to the investments. We realize that during your working years, you very likely have a 401k or a 403b or a 457. You're putting money in there and you're not moving it around. You don't necessarily need someone helping you manage over that. But by the time you're getting to retirement, do you really want to be your own estate and asset manager? All we're doing is paying somebody a little bit to help us out with it.
Well, here's where I think, Spike, and I want to push back a little bit on what you said, is that a lot of times people are still paying 1.5%. They just don't know about it. Or they're getting nothing
inside that
for
retirement
it.
account, a lot of folks will think that's free. By the way, that isn't. There are costs inside that retirement account.
And so the question comes down to, if I can transition of paying 1.5%, getting nothing for it, to paying 1.5% and getting somebody to come alongside me to build a financial plan, to make sure that my income plan is going to last through my retirement, to look at my estate plan, to look at my tax plan, to make sure that if I go into a nursing home, I'm not going to run out of money. And I'm not actually paying any more for it. Why would I not do that?
I think in just about everybody's hands right now who's probably scrolling through their phone while watching us on the program, that nearly 25, almost 26% of tax inside our phone bill. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that at dinner parties. We're not complaining about that at the workplace all the time. Oh, I can't believe that 25%. Therefore, I'm not going to use a cell phone because there's a percent on it.
Well, I think it comes down to that people aren't going to stop using those things because they need them. That's the thought process. Where for whatever reason there seems to be a thought process that, you know, this is discretionary spend to have somebody help me with my retirement. And I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. You have to retire someday, or at least
hopefully,
most
We'd
of
like
us
to.
do. And if I know I have to retire, I think it's just like that cell phone bill or that gasoline tax. I'm not going to stop driving my car or using my cell phone. I have to have it. And if I'm going to have it, I want to make sure that the advice that I'm getting and the value that I receive is the best of what I can get. And that's where people do. They shop around their cell phone services. Maybe they do pay attention to which corner am I going to go to in the gas station because maybe this one's a couple cents cheaper. I understand that. But when it comes to retirement planning, this is a forever choice. And if you get there, if you show up on your 65th birthday and say, this is it, and you don't have enough, that's on you. And you don't have anybody else to blame. At least if you're working with somebody,
we can blame you.
We can blame me, right? Or you can blame our team. I don't understand the miss there, but there is a miss. Even with the metrics that we're seeing in these studies that show returns are higher with working with somebody.
You know what, and I'll say the opposite. I can understand because we don't want to waste money on something that we don't see the value. Mm-hmm. But if you see value in somebody helping you with estate planning or at least having the conversation, I see value in talking to somebody about how and when I take Social Security, see value in how we can get ourselves down to a lower tax bracket, possibly paying no taxes in retirement from our income stream. I see value in that. And then having somebody else manage my assets with the ups and downs of the market so I don't have to or get it wrong, I personally see value in that. And sometimes at what might be a small percentage of a 1 or 1.5%, that for some folks there is a value in it because we pay it in so many of these other things. So maybe it's just kind of a shifting of our way of the way we look at it. Mm-hmm. So the retirement blueprint itself, it covers all of those and a little bit more, right, Tim?
Exactly.
So let's do that for our viewers out here. Get you started on your own retirement blueprint. You can call the phone number or you can use the QR code. Like I said, I know you're all scrolling through your phones right now. So open it up to the camera function right now and then point it at that black and white box on the screen there. When you click on it, it'll take you over to a landing page and you can schedule your own appointment for your own no-cost retirement blueprint. More with Tim Lofton and myself when we get back right after this important message.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint Show with Tim Lofton of Axon Planning and Wealth. I'm your host, Spike Spangle. We've talked about so many different ways and things that we want to be aware of in retirement, and that does include the fees, and the fees are important. But please don't think that your 401ks, that they don't have fees inside of them, and even doing investment strategies on your own, there are still costs there. And then what are the costs of not knowing what you don't know, right, and seeing where the markets are going to move on you? This is one, though, that we can kind of see. Talk to me about the value of the tax planning we keep hearing the word sunsetting, which sounds so soft. It sounds beautiful. We love sunsets, right?
I mean, every time you say it, I envision sitting in a chair on a beach watching the sun go down over the ocean.
Yes, yes. You and I with, a couple of adult beverages, a couple of cervezas watching the sunset. This isn't that kind of sunset. What is sunsetting with the taxes?
Well, what that means, really what it's going to do is revert back to the tax laws that existed prior to this tax law change. And there's a lot of different things that could take place. First of all is it may not happen. There could be a vote and they could extend the tax rules the way they are. Our concern, and Spike, you and I have been talking about this now for, years, is that the national debt, the national deficit is the highest it's ever been in U.S. history.
Yeah, and it's higher right now. And it's higher right now. And it's higher right now.
Hold on, it just went up.
It just went up
again.
And it just went up, yeah.
And so as we look at, at some point that credit card debt of the U.S. government has to be paid off.
Yeah.
And the way they pay that off is with taxes. So there's a really good opportunity here when we look at, the chances of them increasing it, that they're going to increase it. One of the big things here that a lot of people don't know about is that if it reverts back to the old way is the estate tax. That's the ESTATE rule. Goes back from the almost 13 million that it is today back to like $5 million.
Yeah, hang on a second. When you say so, 13, I think it's like 12.9.
12.9.
So, but about 13 million per parent. So let's say
Correct.
we're married couple, so you can leave. Do math, 13 and 13, 26. So you can leave about 26 million.
If you set up your estate properly, you
Okay.
could miss out on that if you don't.
To the heirs, meaning the kids. But you're saying that's going to also now revert back to
Yes.
a lower number, and that number has fluctuated. I also don't see anybody coming in and saving that. Do you?
I don't. That may just be a victim of circumstance. A lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers right now are being like, "That's not my problem." We don't have $10 million,
That's okay.
and we're not
I get
concerned.
that.
And so that's part of that thought process. But I think the bigger thing is the income tax, because that's what we keep. That's when we get our paycheck, our paycheck's not going up, and we could literally wake up on January 1st of 2026, and all of a sudden our paycheck's less. And what do we do with that? What is the plan there?
Right, and so that's why we want to get ahead of these things. It's a concept you've been talking about the last couple of weeks. I heard you say it on our weekly radio show, talking about refinancing your retirement. Now, I know we're in the tax world right now, but would that include something like taxes, taking a look at that?
Definitely. When we talk about refinancing your retirement, we're talking about potentially refinancing the risk that you're taking, making a change there. We're talking about taking advantage of, we complain about the rates going up in a lot of different areas, credit cards, home loans, car loans. But there's also an opportunity there where we're getting more income in things like our savings accounts and CDs, or in this case, maybe our retirement, where we can actually refinance our retirement to take advantage of something that maybe doesn't feel good on one side. Maybe we can take advantage of it.
Yeah,
over
I
here.
mean, because again, we've said this before. When I think of refinancing, we usually think of refinancing a mortgage because interest rates have gone down, or your car, or maybe your credit cards. If you can, you call the credit card company, ask, can I get a little bit lower rate? But interest rates have gone up. So the only opportunity we're looking at is doing something like refinancing the retirement. Are there other tools besides some of those safer ones you were talking about, income tools? Because those numbers, I think, have gone up as well.
Well, we have definitely seen in the annuity space, and we've talked about this before, we've seen almost $200 billion this year that have gone into annuities, and a large portion of that has been in things that are paying fixed rates or higher participation rates because of interest rates going up. So there's a recognition of that, I think, in the public where people are doing this. But again, you don't know what you don't know. If you haven't taken advantage of this, or this is the first time you're hearing about it, this is an opportunity to take a look at your retirement and set up a review with us. It's complimentary. You can sit down with us and see if refinancing your retirement makes sense right now.
You've got another phrase that you've been playing with lately and saying better is better. Now, I know that we all strive for things to be better, whether it's better in our career, better with our homes, a better education, better choices for our children and for our future. When it comes to retirement planning, what is this better is better for you?
I'm not talking about keeping up with the Joneses here, Spike. Better is best. What I mean by that is this. You probably have some type of plan right now. It may not be the best plan, but if it's the only plan you know, if you haven't gotten a second opinion or had somebody to look, that's in the independent space. That's where we operate. We're not working for a company per se where we only have a couple tools in the toolbox. We have all the tools in the toolbox.
Or there's a quota from
a quota.
the company, from the organization, and you're supposed
Right.
to use this amount of tools, and the person who does gets the set of steak knives, or the night out to dinner with a family and so forth. You are independent in the way that you get to evaluate everything that's out there and find out which tools might be in somebody's best interest.
And I think this is where, the idea of a fiduciary gets misunderstood. Because you could be at a company who has only a couple tools in the toolbox, and they are indeed recommending the best thing for you that they have available. But that doesn't make it the best thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But it might make more sense for folks to call the phone number and come on in and get their own retirement blueprint. I know you're going to take a look at investments. Obviously, we'll talk about taxes, estate planning, Social Security, how and when to take Medicare, and doing all those reviews. Anything else I'm leaving out, Tim?
Well, the estate plan is probably one of the biggest things that we see as a miss as people are coming into our office. A lot of times they're thinking it's going to be the investments, and a lot of times that is the case. But more importantly, making sure that everything that you have is buttoned up in a proper estate plan is a very important part of the retirement blueprint.
Right. And the retirement blueprint, this is a process. This isn't a product. This isn't just something you print out when somebody walks in and goes, this is kind of our idea.
This is a customized plan built for you. This isn't a booklet or something we mail to you. This is something that we design to you after you explain to us what retirement is supposed to look like for you. And then we can put on paper a written plan to get you there.
Thank you so very much, Tim. I value you. I value
Thank
this
you.
time on our television show together. Folks, get your own retirement blueprint by calling the phone number down on the bottom of the screen. We want to help evaluate what are the costs that you're paying inside your investments. Are you taking too much risk? Also talk about taxes, estate planning, Medicare, how and when to take Social Security, all that and more for you and your family. Call the phone number, get your own no-cost retirement blueprint. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.